Here we are on a Thursday night as we head into the Father's Day holiday weekend, which includes Monday, Juneteenth. And we've got a bunch of stuff going on, so we're going to get to it quickly right here on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you
Omni.
by.
Um, First of all, I'm running a few seconds behind you,
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't see the actual. Omni Landscape and Garden Supply at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in beautiful downtown West Babylon, New York, providing you with all sorts of great stuff in the winter, salt and snow blowers, but we really didn't need that this winter season. But now we're into summer, so you need mulch. They've got it. They've got all kinds of gardening equipment. You can get it all at Omni. Online you can go to omnitruevalue.com, and the phone number 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. Long Island's largest rock salt source. Keep that in mind when we get to November in the wintertime. But right now, if you need mulch, if you need gardening tools, that is the place to get it.
And, of course, also brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. You can get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing weather observing network on the planet. Not too late to buy the Father's Day gift. I don't know if they'll be able to ship it out to you in time, but if you use the referral code pinned to the top of the chat board, then you will get usually there's the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show where you'd get 10% off. But because of Father's Day, they have a Father's Day special. You get $40 off the Tempest WeatherFlow weather system. So you save a little extra money. So instead of getting $32.99 back deducted, you get $40, which ain't too shabby. What was the commercial when we were kids, Joe? I think it was for like for it was for a furniture company of some sort. Maybe it was. I know they had the warehouse off the Bruckner Expressway on 149th Street because they had the big sign, and there was a phone number there that you would call out of, and they always used to when they had the commercials, they would say out of town, please call collect.
Oh, that was actually, I think that was a place in New Guernsey where you could get all kinds of
Well,
uh,
wherever it was, but I tried. I thought.
and you want to know what's so funny? You just brought it up, and and it touches the back of my brain. And I probably have not thought about this in like 40 or 50 plus years. AX70188.
AX. That's a familiar phone number. What was that for?
Ah, see now, Joe, why did you do this to me? Because
I
now
remember
the
that
Rolodex,
that number's familiar. I don't know.
the Rolodex in my head is going to be spinning around all through the night, trying to remember exactly what that was. But I do remember that they said out of town call collect.
Yes. All right. Um, so we don't drive you crazy. So we're heading into Friday, and it looks like we might have some showers and thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon and evening. There's even some severe weather risk that sneaks up the coast. It may not be far enough north, though, but SPC, of course, is glued to the set right now, watching us and waiting to hear what we have to say. But they're also very busy because we do have another big severe weather outbreak occurring from the southern plains through the deep south. I'm thinking that Saturday may actually wind up not being too bad, particularly if you go south of New York City. I think it won't be picture perfect, but I'm guessing much of the rain may be over with before Saturday morning, and then we'll just spend the day with leftover clouds, and there'll be some instability showers and thunderstorms, I think, in New England. But I think Saturday may turn out okay, and Sunday looks okay.
Yes, it looks like Father's Day is going to be turning out a bit better than what we had been alluding to or thinking of in recent days. And of the two weekend days, Saturday looks to be the wetter. And yeah, it may not turn out quite as bad as what we had been initially promoting for the possibility of convection or thunderstorm activity. And Juneteenth, which is a holiday on Monday, that looks like a pretty good day, too. Maybe some showers, if not holding off until the end of the day, maybe holding off until Monday night.
All right, well, that works for me. So, again, not a perfect weekend, but maybe a weekend where much of the time it winds up being rain free. So, we'll get going with the weather here. Welcome to everybody on the chat board. Yay, chat board. And welcome to those of you who are watching in the background on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. We're on Monday through Thursday at 7:35, Sundays at 11 a.m. But I guess this may be a good time to tell you that Sunday we will be off for Father's Day. So after tonight, we will not be back until Monday. Okay, just letting you know. Uh, Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn your notifications on and join the conversation so that you can be, part of the group here. They were here every night. Oh, it's amazing. It's just everybody, it's amazing. Every night they're all here. It's like it's a big hangout, which we like, and that's good. And if you like the show tonight, do hit the like button. So we've got the
Dennis Cassia, by the way, on the chat board, TR30404. Of course, Dennis and I have been long assiduous or enthusiastic amateur astronomers, and TR30404, by the way, the TR stood for Trafalgar.
Trafalgar.
TR30404 was at the Hayden Planetarium. They had a service back in the 60s and 70s called Dial a Satellite. And if there were any major bright satellites that were going to pass over the tri-state area, you dial that number and you can hear a recording telling you exactly what part of the sky to look for these. And I don't know about Dennis. I used to call that number God knows how many times. I must have ran the phone bill up. This is when I was like 10, 12, 14 years old. And they actually had that number up until about, I think, the 80s. And then they finally just phased it out, whatever. But I saw that, and I got he put a smile emoji next to the phone number. But Dennis, I recognize that. I recognize that phone number, and I'm still trying to figure out what AX70188 is. And I'll probably call Joe up at 2:00 in the morning on Saturday and say, Joe, guess what? I figured it.
Yeah, don't. Not at 2:00 in the morning. The next weather front approaching from the west is with a low in southeastern Michigan. And you can see the trailing cold front running across northern Indiana and Illinois. There's a weak high. Boy, they're desperate when they make a 10,008 pressure a high. But that's what it is, folks. Covering the northeast, which, by the way, is also showing relatively low dew points, even some dew points down in the 40s in a few places well inland. Actually, interestingly, the dew points are higher in the 60s up in northern New England than they are across the mid-Atlantic, the northern mid-Atlantic states, where we've got the dew points in the upper 40s to mid-50s. So it's just one of those strange times. And then, of course, in the south, we still have this old frontal boundary running from the Oklahoma Panhandle across northeast Texas and Louisiana and down along the southern part of the Gulf states. And this is where we're seeing severe weather breaking out. I'm going to refresh the satellite loop with the lightning strikes because it almost looks like last night where we've had showers and thunderstorms in southern Alabama, southern over the Florida Panhandle, into southwest Georgia, but it may be a little bit less in terms of the magnitude. It looked a little more vibrant a bit earlier. And we also have some showers and storms now breaking out and moving into western Kansas and Oklahoma. And that is another area of severe weather that SPC is concerned about. Here's the radar right now. Let me get over to the east. In Ohio and over Lake Erie, we've got a complex of showers and a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings there this evening. There's some scattered shower activity going on in parts of northern New England. Then you got to go way south, and most of those cells now have moved down further south. There's a streak of cells in eastern Alabama, southeastern Alabama, very narrow east-west band. And also across the Florida Panhandle and through northern Florida, we're seeing some showers, thunderstorms, and special marine warnings. And here we've got a bunch of severe thunderstorm warnings right now in south central Kansas, western Oklahoma outside the Panhandle, right along the Texas state line. There's a couple of tornado warnings in the mix, including in southern Oklahoma, uh, running along the Texas border there, so pretty busy. And we also continue to see patches of showers and heavy downpours in parts of the central and northern Rockies, and even up into the northern plains. So busy, busy, busy. So let's look at the Storm Prediction Center for tonight, which has got a moderate risk of severe weather from the area in Oklahoma down into north central Texas, and that comes with a 10% tornado risk, fairly large 5% tornado risk there, and also on the Florida Panhandle and the coast of Alabama and southeastern Mississippi, although maybe that part of it's already played out. Uh, just back to the categorical area, marginal risk. I had a thunderstorm, Joe, just a little while ago, which was good because I did a lot of landscaping today, so I didn't have to really water anything I planted because the thunderstorm took care of it.
And it
But
was a regular thunderstorm, right? It
yeah,
was not. Yeah.
yeah, I'm way north, so I'm in this marginal risk zone, and it wasn't anything really to write home about. Small area of marginal risk with that complex for Ohio. Now let's look at tomorrow. So what are your thoughts? Because SPC now has, slight risk up to about or just south of Route 195 on the southern, the south service road, it's a slight risk. On the north service road, it's a marginal risk, and then the risk just goes away. Do we extend that a little bit further to the north? I say we take the marginal risk up into eastern Pennsylvania, uh, maybe cutting off around the Catskills to about, let's say, Kingston, and then swinging it into Connecticut, touching the Rhode Island state line.
I'd like to know the person who did this forecast was a person, I don't know if it's a male or female, named Goss. And I would love to have Goss and ask him or her why the gradient is so tight between the area with the boundary line for slight risk versus the boundary zone for marginal risk. They're very, very close together
What's
on the
that
map.
about?
And then,
What's that about? 10 miles?
yeah, and then you go north of there, and then for much of the tri-state area, including Long Island, northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, just general thunderstorm coverage. And even more interesting, Joe, in the area for slight risk, I said to myself, okay, so what do they got for tornado? 2%? Yeah, nothing. No tornado threat, or at least a minimal tornado threat of less than 2%, because it's not even mentioned. They do have in the slight zone, 15% chance of possible damaging straight line winds. And then, even more interesting, with the hail doesn't even match the wind zone. The hail,
No, it
actually,
doesn't. Look at that.
it's further south, from Cape May and points south into, actually, the Delmarva seems to be almost exclusive for the possibility of hail. So
Right. Well, it's
really,
5%. I'm switching back and forth between the wind and the hail, and it's just the line, the slight. That's all matched up to the slight risk line. But then for the hail, they bring it down, as you said, down to Delaware. Maybe it's how the warm sector sets up tomorrow.
there's got to be some reason why we have such a tight gradient between the marginal and the slight, and why there is no mention. I mean, whenever there's a severe thunderstorm watch posted, and I guess this is built into the template when a Weather Service office issues a severe thunderstorm watch, or SPC does, there is always the mention in there that with such a watch, there's always the chance for an isolated or risk of an odd tornado. It's always, they always have that.
Yeah.
So why not at least put 2% chance of tornado for this? They don't. They're putting more of an emphasis on the hail and the wind, and even more of an emphasis on the straight line winds, and a lesser amount on hail. So I don't know.
They've got we have two working tornado watches up as of 7:50 p.m. Eastern time. Always remember, folks, if you're watching this on a replay, please go to weather.gov to get the latest weather information. So we have two working tornado watches in covering much of Oklahoma and Kansas, And then there's a severe thunderstorm watch that's on the Nebraska side that's sort of getting whittled away here. And there's also a severe thunderstorm watch on the Florida Panhandle and back over toward about Mobile. So we'll see how that works out. Most of those storms are moving. The area is not moving. It looks like it's moving south of due east. So the storms will actually cross the way they got the box drawn. It's probably going to cross that entire box before they peter out sometime during the overnight. And let's jump to Sunday. I'm sorry, Saturday into Sunday, where we have general thunderstorms being indicated for the Northeast. Marginal to slight risk across again the Gulf states and northwestward into the southern plains. And they have for Sunday on day 4, they've got an area of risk indicated here. Let's see where. All right, they got a 15% risk. That would be a slight risk possibility in Arkansas, Mississippi, northwest Alabama, and western Tennessee. Probably my guess is since they got a slight risk now, by the time we get there, it could wind up being an enhanced risk, but nothing nothing from risk-wise being indicated anywhere else in the east. Meanwhile, as we take a look at the rainfall forecast, now this is interesting. They've got a large area of 2.5 inches or more. The 5-inch plus rains are now on the Florida Panhandle, southern Alabama, southwest Georgia. Now they've gotten rain the last couple of days. So, the other day we've been talking about how they've been showing, areas of 7 to 10 inches or more. So they've gotten some of that already. So now they've got the rest of it's going to come. But they've got heavy rains of 2.5 inches or more pushed up all the way into Virginia. And the 1.5 inches then continues further north up into central New Jersey, and then we go to half to 3/4 of an inch everywhere else. Now, much of that you see in the northern edge is with regards to later next week and questions about how a system's going to set up along the East Coast and whether there's going to be some kind of low along the coast or just offshore. Hard to say, but it is we're going to get some rain if this is right, and I'm going to get more.
Yeah, it looks like for the tri-state area, the immediate tri-state area, it looks like overall possibly a half to maybe an inch. Well, put more emphasis on the inch, I guess, south of New York City, and the half-inch up into northwestern Jersey and western sections of the Hudson Valley, and maybe, just maybe, isolated areas of like 1.5 inches over southeastern Massachusetts, over toward Cape Cod and the islands. So there is some moisture, and there will be some to take into account over the next 7 days.
And we still have decent rains for the next 7 days across the middle Mississippi Valley to the Central Plains, 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches. Some heavier amounts up in the northern plains, and then a little arm that snakes through the northern Rockies of 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches. So let's take a look at what the models are doing. Before we do this, I want to take a look at the tropics for just a moment. As there's 2 things I'd like to point out. First off, let me bring up the tropical weather outlook to see if they're even saying anything. Nope. I put in NOAA.gov and I get Google. Why is that happening? Okay.
I don't know.
Well, guess what? They've got an X indicated off the African coast, Joe. A tropical wave is producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions are expected to be conducive for gradual development of this system while it moves generally westward to west-northwest at 15 to 20 miles per hour over the central tropical Atlantic over the next several days. 0% probability, and through the 7-day forecast period, you can see how they're tracking this. 30% probability of development. Now, we've been talking about the fact that the GFS has been spinning things up, and if you take a look right down here, first of all, this is really early for something to come out off the African coast. But it seems, Joe, that we had this trouble last year where we were talking for much of the June, July, and even for a good part of August, where the intertropical convergence zone was way to the south, almost down near the equator. Well, we kind of have the opposite here because it's kind of uh, not too far south of 10 degrees north, and that's pretty far north for mid-June to have it. And the reason why this one is being pointed out is because unlike, let's shift our attention here to for a moment just to the Gulf, to the Caribbean. Unlike this system, which the GFS keeps trying to spin something up in from there, and then getting it involved with the system that's going to be in the east later next week. And it actually has a wrapped up low that it takes just east of Cape Cod. The prior run had it going almost right over Cape Cod. Looked like Hurricane Agnes. I discount the reality of that mainly because the European doesn't have it and the Canadian doesn't have it. But the European has the system out in the Atlantic as the GFS does. And it briefly, on the last run, it looked like it brought it almost to a tropical storm, but then it just weakens and degenerates to an open wave by the time it gets to the islands. So it's kind of interesting that we're seeing something coming out of there so early. I mean, it would be unprecedented to get a hurricane in June in that part of the tropical Atlantic.
It does not happen very often that obviously the intertropical convergence zone is evident where it normally is, running from east to west. But normally at this time of the year, I think Sahara Desert dust helps to tamp down the possibility of any kind of tropical system. When you look for tropical systems now, you usually look further to the west, over toward the Caribbean. But it'll be something to watch. What more can we possibly say?
That hasn't already been said. Well, I brought up I brought up the Atlantic satellite here. There's not a whole lot. I'm just looking at the last couple of frames before sunset. There's not a whole lot of dust coming off the African coast at the moment, nor is there any dust that I can see in the Atlantic. But you could see the tropical wave that's moving. Not quite. It's just this part of it's offshore, part of it's inland, and it's all just sort of moving on its way to the west. Meanwhile, we've just got clouds and showers in the southwest Caribbean, but that's not really doing anything. But we'll see how it plays out when we come back next Monday. Maybe we'll have a little system out there to talk about, but I wouldn't really put too much stock in anything happening from that. So as far as our weather is concerned across the U.S., let's look at the upper air. And there's your big upper low this morning, last night actually, in southern New York, moved out off the New England coast. Here comes the next arm that drops southeastward. Not cutting off this time as far south as what the models were showing yesterday. The cutoff is way up near the eastern part of Lake Ontario, and then it just drops southeastward during the day on Saturday. Sort of, to me, it would favor that the instability convection that would be produced from this would be mainly up in New England and upstate New York, and not so much on the southern side. And then here comes that energy in the west that kicks this thing out, and that upper low dives into the southeast. We talked about this yesterday, and you start to see what looks like a southerly flow developing along the eastern seaboard. And this is where it gets a little dicey, I think, Joe, for the second half of next week, because you've got this upper low that dives down, and then another upper low forms, over Virginia or Pennsylvania. There it is, and that's going to be a mechanism that's going to lift whatever moisture that's along the Atlantic seaboard and try to lift it straight northward. So that's the justification, I think, for putting, having a fairly widespread rainfall possibility later next week, depending on how this sets up in the upper air.
Now, a lot of people have been asking on the chat board, what about the smoke? What about the smoke? So if you give me sharing capabilities, I'll show you.
Well, you have it.
I do
All right,
have
well,
it.
you know what? Let me since I got this, let me just finish this, and then and just let me finish this with the surface, and then you can
Okay.
do the smoke, okay? So this way
Right.
we don't have to come back to it. So here's a situation for uh, why is that say 6C Thursday? That's because I have the old run up there. Okay, here we go. So here we are Thursday night. Here's our system for tomorrow. GFS wants to be pretty bullish with an area of thunderstorms coming through during the early to mid afternoon, and then that goes out, and it doesn't really have that much. You can see what develops on Saturday is mostly upstate New York and New England, and then that low pulls away to the northeast. So, from New York City south, it probably won't be that bad. Then, as we move on to Sunday, you see the area of thunderstorms coming out of the southern plains and moving into the southern states down to Florida, while the weather in the northeast is, for the most part, fine. Bit of an onshore flow starts to develop on Monday with a high to the northeast, lower pressures off the southeast coast, and then the models are going to have a tough time trying to figure out how to work this. This one wants to form a low off the North Carolina coast, I would say non-tropical in nature, and then move it northward up the coast with actually a fairly decent gradient. So this would be for later Thursday night into Friday of next week. We'll see how that plays. But I wouldn't discount the possibility that there could be something of that nature for later next week. Now, go ahead and do the smoke.
Okay. Get this my screen share going, and we'll show you exactly what we have. This is again, this is 4 p.m. this afternoon, and notice like a donut hole of smoke-free conditions over northern and central sections of Pennsylvania and the southern tier of New York State. But much of the Northeast has a relatively light smoke cover, anywhere from 1 to 10 parts per million. Now, notice up just north of Montreal, there's a rather thick layer of smoke. In fact, I may move down here and close in a little bit. Look at this. This is all the stuff that's in Quebec right now that's apparently wildfires that are burning out of control. And all of this stuff is going to perhaps play into our local weather over the next 2 days or so. Let me back off a little bit now, and I'll show you how this all works out. Center the New York area here in the picture. And now, as we move things along, this is 8 o'clock. This is our current view. Notice that the area, that donut hole, kind of widens out. And so actually, right now, we have a fairly wide area of smoke-free conditions, including the tri-state area. And you say, boy, that's nice, that's good. Let's see if that can keep up. Well, it won't, because over time, although it is widening as we move into the overnight hours tonight, as we move into the early part of the day tomorrow, this is 8 o'clock in the morning, notice that all of a sudden, from two different directions, the smoke is approaching. This area here is beginning to close in from the north and east, and this area to the west of us is moving eastward. And so these two areas are seemingly converging to the point where eventually, when we get to 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, we are now into this light smoke cover. Again, this isn't anything dangerous, but we are going to get into somewhat smoky or hazy conditions tomorrow, and we're going to apparently remain in that for a little while, and then it backs off a bit. That might be because of that upper low that, or actually not really an upper low, but a short wave, if you will, that's pivoting around. That may set the stage for some showers and storms here later tomorrow into tomorrow evening. But then by 9 p.m., we're back into smoke-free conditions. And then we get back into it. It seems to be like an ebb
It doesn't
and flow.
look. I'm just, I'm watching. I got my own screen up from there, Joe. It does not look good for Saturday, smoke wise. I mean, it
Oh,
really.
well, take a look.
Take a look.
Take a look, folks. This is now we're getting not. This is not light smoke. This is more of a. Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're in the 3 zones. 1, 2, 3. So this is 25 to 50 parts per million. That's moving in by 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, and then there's an area that's up in upstate New York, and actually apparently coming on down. I'm going to back off a little bit here so you can see what I'm talking about. Look at this area enveloping Ottawa, Canada, and Ontario, just to the south of Montreal. And as I think that's the last frame.
Yeah, that's 60 to 120.
That's 6 p.m. on Saturday, and I can only guess where this is going to be going. Maybe it might not necessarily go right for New York, but it will be over the Northeast come later Saturday into probably part of Sunday as well.
Yeah.
So smoke is going to be a part of the equation for weather in the Northeast over this upcoming Father's Day weekend.
And I just want to just go back. I want to just look at that upper air for Sunday or the weekend, because the wind, hang on a second here. All right, so Saturday we've got that upper low. Let me bring the maps back up, to just hold on one second here. So you got the upper low coming down over New York State. It's almost as if the smoke is trapped inside the circulation of that upper low as it moves southeastward. And then on Sunday, well, you know what? I'm looking at this for Sunday afternoon and evening, Joe. It's a north-northwest flow that comes from Quebec straight down through New York State and then makes the turn off Long Island and New Jersey. You got to wonder whether that dark patch of smoke is going to wind up coming down.
We'll see. We shall see.
Well, there is the possibility. We can't deny it. All right, let me see if I get you back, because I couldn't. There you go. Okay, good. It's not having that same problem like we had the other day. All right, let's do a little bit of Briller Jeopardy here on this Thursday night so we could start our weekend. You have it or I have it? I had it last night, so you should have it.
I should. I will check to see if we do have it. But I don't remember seeing anything from Scott yesterday. Usually I see something right after the show for the next day. But let me check. Just stand by for a moment.
Standing by. Or as Fred Mert said, stand by for another troop movement.
I think I did. Yeah. On this Thriller Jeopardy, average lows in June, over under on steps. What does that say? Joe, on this Thriller Jeopardy, average lows in June, over under on steps, period. Then he's got the number 15.
I don't know. I don't know what that means.
I have no clue what that means either. But I will give you the 5 places. These are, again, average lows in June for the following cities, starting with a place that Mr. Cioffi owned when he was there doing the weather. New Orleans, Joe.
New Orleans, average low, 71.
71?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I don't want to climb a mountain today anyway because my feet are killing me. John Melander says 72. Frank Riccio at 76. Keith James in New Orleans, probably the last time it gets under 60 is in early May, 59. Frank Scalera, 68.
Owen Daniel got it right on the nose.
75?
75.
Boy, that's kind of high-ish. All right.
Wow. All right.
Next.
All right. For the next one, I'm going to take a shortcut through Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Okay. I'm going to say 64.
Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, I got that on the nose.
Right on the nose.
Nice.
You want to reach in my pocket? You won't find anything in there, but
no.
You know.
A bunch of you said 63, and John Melander says 65, and Adam Lowe says 64, so that's the one. It's 64. Okay, what's the next one?
The great bird that burns itself up and 500 years later is restored to life. Phoenix.
Oh God, I'm not good with stuff from the Southwest because I mean it could be like, it could be 60 in the morning and go to 105 in the afternoon. I'll say 68.
Well, you're way down low,
Way
Joe.
down low. Okay. I've got no clue.
I'm feeling mighty
No.
low.
Christina Pedia said 75, and Patrick Darcy and Frank Riccio said 77, and Keith James is 78. Are they too low also?
Keith James and Adam Lowe are very close.
So it's 79?
79.
Oh my God, that's awful. Next.
Yeah, but what's the dew point, Joe?
3.
How about Bing Crosby's favorite city, Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh.
He wants to own the Pittsburgh Pirates, by the way.
I'll say 62.
That's pretty good. Not right, but pretty good.
Frank Scalera said 15.
15?
Wrong month, Frank.
Was that Kelvin?
Yeah, wrong month. John Melander says 60.
John Melander, by the skin of the teeth.
Um,
and Timmy Grow got it.
59.
I don't think I ever saw Timmy Grow on the chat board.
No, he may be new. Hi, Timmy Grow.
Congratulations, Timmy.
And I see Darlene V. Johnson. That's a new one, too. 57. Nice to see new people on the chat board. Rain's 12. Rainx 12. I think we've seen him before. Yeah, well, it's nice to see new folks on the chat board. Just in time for us to say goodbye.
59. Portland, Oregon. This is the last one of the night.
Oh, this is tough because, where they are. I'm going to say 55.
Close. Not bad.
Portland, Oregon, guys and gals. Tyler Fiegas is 59. John Melander, 57. Keith James, 57. Rainx 12 says he's from Maine. Nice to see you. It's lupin season. I've been meaning to mention that, Joe, by the way, the last few nights. It's lupin season in Maine. Miss Fallerite, 58. Carol DeCara, 54.
Howard A. got it, though.
Howard A. at 53.
53 degrees.
53. All right. Land to Goshen.
Yes.
All right. You know what? The sponsors are not going to get a second round tonight because I'm tired. I'm landscaping by myself, 1.5 acres of land. So, and I've been doing a little bit each day. So today was 3 trips to Home Depot and 36 bags of mulch.
Oh God.
And that's, that didn't even take care of the front area, let alone the rest of the property. But I'll manage it somehow. I made this vow. I made this vow to myself that I'm going to get this done and I'm going to do it, and it's going to be because when I tend to do projects and things, after a while I get bored and I don't want to do it anymore. So it winds up, I do a little bit and then it just lays there and I never get to finish it. Well, I just kind of made it the point that I'm just going to do a little bit each day and just keep doing it. So I've been doing that for the better part of the last 7 or 8 days now. Actually, maybe even a little more. And
Christina Pedia says, we want pictures when it's done. LOL.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've already done quite a bit. I built a garden wall and, have to haul in dirt, then haul in the mulch, and, then there's all sorts of, I live in the woods, so there's a lot of greenery and there's a lot of trees. But, yeah, I definitely will show pictures maybe next week after I get some more mulch in there tomorrow and Saturday. And probably Sunday, since I'm not doing anything for Father's Day. So, anyway.
All right. Well,
okay.
We thank all of you for watching tonight. Again, we are off now Friday, Saturday, and Father's Day Sunday. But even though it's a federal holiday, we will be back on Juneteenth Monday. And till then, we hope all of you are going to have a nice weekend.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Happy Father's Day to all the dads that are watching tonight, and we'll see you back on Monday. Nighty-night.
Nighty-night, folks.